Hey everyone, and welcome to part 2 of the Pursuit of Happiness series with Teresa Greco, where we'll be jumping right into workplace happiness. So let's get started. Given the nature of the corporate system and things like that, um, how would you say that leadership also plays a role in maintaining this happiness?
We don't often have leaders in positions that actually understand that for you to rise, because some people think for them to move up and for them to rise up, they actually have to step on other people's backs in order to get there. A true leader understands that by helping other people to rise, that it is you rise in that process. So you actually always want to think of yourself as a mentor, in the sense that when you mentor the behavior of how you want your team to be and perform, that it incentivizes them to be more like that, and that being that you're going about it in ways that are productive for everybody, ways that promote love and peace and happiness and everything that you do. That putting people down or giving them negative feedback is not actually going to bring them to rise to like who they really are. So leaders have to understand what an amazing position they're in to inspire, motivate their staff to be the best version of themselves, so that they again bring that to the workplace. And when people show up happy, research has shown that they're more productive. They want to collaborate more with people. They stay at workplaces a lot longer, meaning that you don't have high turnover rates in your company. That you have more presenteeism, which means when people are there, they're present to their work instead of being distracted on their phones or wasting time talking to colleagues. And so they're actually more productive at work. There's less absenteeism, which means that they take less time off from work. So there's huge pluses to having people who are happy come to work, because it actually increases the bottom line. They actually make more money when people are happy at work.
Right. Okay, I like that. And just moving on to some scenarios that people can experience at work. A study done by Deloitte in over 44 countries shows that 40% of Gen Zs always feel stressed or anxious at work. So just based on that, let's bring up some scenarios that could probably influence these stressors and how to navigate them in a healthy way. So, the scenario number 1. In a situation where there's constant negativity in the workplace, like gossip, micromanagement, and a lack of support from leadership, how can someone maintain their happiness and mental well-being while working in a toxic environment?
Yes, thank you. So that really leads to the point about creating healthy boundaries for yourself. And so that means that either you try to avoid those people or you get rid of them completely. And so at work, it's a little more challenging, right, to get rid, unless, you might ask to be a part of a different team, or you move into like a different part of the organization so that you don't have to directly interact with those people. Otherwise, it's about trying to avoid them as much as possible, so you don't insert yourself into like places where you know that they are. You don't insert yourself in those conversations, or you exit yourself when they come and want to talk to you about their negative stuff, about how they hate their work, hate their manager, hate their partners, hate their kids, it's like, how do you say, you know what, I actually don't have time, right? Like, how can you communicate to them that you don't want to participate in those type of conversations because they don't make you feel good about yourself and your life? So tune into who are those people and spaces that when you go there, you don't feel good about yourself, about your work, about your life, because of the things that they're talking about. So me, for example, I ended up so I'm an educator by profession. When I realized that a lot of teachers were talking negative stuff in the staff room or in teachers' classrooms, I didn't go there. So at first I was like, oh, what are they all doing in that classroom, like after work? What are y'all talking about? I go there and I realized it was talking bad about the kids, talking bad about the parents, and talking bad about admin. I'm like, I had a beautiful day. I
Uh-huh.
actually enjoy my work. I enjoy the kids that we work with, and I'm like not going to go in there to be part of the gossip.
Yeah.
But it's like all of that misery likes company, right? So it's like when you actually rise above that, you actually don't want to even be a part of any of that negativity. And so find ways to create boundaries between yourself and that. So maybe you
Yeah.
go out for lunch instead of staying in the workplace. Maybe you go and you hang out and you go for a walk, you hang out and you go for a break in your car or whatever, but you try to limit your interaction with those people as possible.
And I
Other
think, yeah, I just think step one to doing that is trying to realize that, hey, these people are negative, and like sometimes people choose to engage with them because they actually want their validation, because they think that their validation is necessary. So step one is understanding that there's a healthy way and an unhealthy way to do it, and seeking validation from people like that aren't going to get you anywhere. And then number two is being comfortable with yourself, because if you're comfortable with yourself, you will go on those walks alone, and you won't be afraid to be seen alone,
Yes.
right?
Yes, excellent. Good points.
Okay. So we'll move on to the second scenario then. You may have a manager who avoids confrontation and prefers to maintain balance. When you ask for feedback, instead of giving you clear constructive input, they avoid the conversation entirely. Worse, they discuss your performance with other coworkers, which undermines your reputation and makes you look bad. How would you approach the situation acting as the higher version of yourself to maintain your integrity?
Well, I feel like that scenario kind of had two parts to that because the first part was that your manager isn't forthcoming with feedback for you, but then in turn goes around, talking about you behind. So that individual isn't acting very professional in the way that they're going about talking behind you to other people. So I would probably have to say that because that person isn't acting in the best professionalism by talking behind your back, that I would probably address that with someone who's responsible for that person's performance and to say that, this has been your experience. I know that might be a little bit tricky to do that. If you, I would probably address it with them too, to say, listen, this is what I'm noticing, and that I'm asking you for feedback, but then yet you're going around and saying negative things to other people. Their life is all, a lot of life is outside of our control. It's recognizing the things that we can control and focusing on that. And so I see that all of us are within our own happiness bubble, and inside of our bubble, we have complete control over what we do in here. I have no control over anything outside of that bubble. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Nothing. So it's always important for you to recognize what is inside of your control and what is outside of your control. So inside of my control is that if I start to feel that negative energy starting to impact me inside of my happiness bubble, I think about, well, what can I control so I don't allow that to permeate inside, right? So I can take action to try to limit the influences outside, but again, a lot of it is outside, right? Like let's look at our government, for example, right? There's lots of stuff that's happening on a political level that's disturbing to me, but I can't affect change in any of those things because I'm not in a position to do so. So I can only affect change inside of what's inside of my happiness bubble. So if I start to feel that this person's behavior or activity is starting to influence on my happiness, that either I can take steps to try to control what it is that's happening outside, which in this case is having discussions with her, having discussions with people that may be higher than her. But I'm going to then try to maintain the happiness inside of my bubble by doing the practices that help me to come to peace, right? Help me to protect my peace. So I might meditate more. I might get out in nature more. I might read, more of the books where I feel empowered, where I feel good about myself, where I know that I'm actually doing the best that I can. And so again, there's been evaluations where, my manager comes and observes, or things like that. And I know that I'm always doing 110%, that I am putting so much love into what I do. And if other people can't see that because of their own issues, their own life, their own whatever, there's nothing I can do about it. It's again outside of my control. So always recognize that you have full control over yourself and the life that you're creating. So always come back to that, to say, if you're starting to feel influenced by the other bubbles that are outside of your own, you can't do anything about those. All you can do is about the ones inside. You can only manage what's inside of your own bubble.
So when would you say it's time to leave, like that company or thing, something like that?
So I think you always have to go back to the why. Why are you doing the things that you are doing, right? Including your job. So if you know that your job, that when you kind of drill down to like the why behind why it is that you're doing it, maybe you're doing it where, you can, maybe it pays a lot of money, for example, right? So that you're going to work at it for a certain amount of time before you can then maybe leave your job and pursue something else. Or you work there, you continue to work there because it's giving you the possibility of having like health benefits that you wouldn't have, and you have health concerns that insurance is helping you to pay for, or your family has health concerns it's helping to pay for, or that you're doing that like to supplement income, so that once your side gig starts to pick up, then you can leave that job to do your side gig. Or it allows you to like, maybe it pays for like professional development for you, so that you can kind of move ahead and then potentially leave in the future. So if they're, in the end, when you think about, if you try to find the why behind why you're there and there isn't any good reasons, then you should leave. But if there are some good things, you need to become aware of what those things are, so that you don't begrudge going there all the time, right? So for me, some of the good things about my work that I've been doing for a very long time is that it's actually mindless to me at this point. And so what that allows me to do is to spend more like mental energy on the things that I'm doing outside of my work. And when I go to work, I'm able to, make some money, and it's not stressful to me, and it doesn't require me to have like, a whole bunch of pressures and everything like that. So I know the reasons behind why I continue to do some things that technically are on my list as like I have to do or I should do. If you have things that, technically the have tos and shoulds are like red flags, you don't want to have a whole bunch of have tos and I shoulds. It should be like, I get to, I want to, so I get to go to school, I get to go to work, I get to go to this job because, and the reasons behind it. And again, if you can't find any reasons, then you should leave.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. I like that answer a lot. Okay, and last question. So what are some strategies you implement to maintain happiness, and how do you recommend that Gen Z does the same as well?
Okay, thank you. So I have like my 5 top steps to happiness, which I'll share. There's many because they're very personal to people, but my 5 top steps are even like very much based in science too. And I feel like they're good for everybody. So my first step is meditation. Meditation, I believe, is one of those gateway practices that help us to connect with our spiritual self. So if people, I'm glad that meditation isn't so weird and woo-woo than like it was 10 years ago when I started, over 10 years ago when I started, and people thought I was part of a cult, and they said, Teresa, you need to stop what you're doing because this is weird. Now people talk about it, which is great. I still though get that people have tried and they can't get into that space or it's not working. It's really about, I'm a meditation coach, so I help people discover forms of meditation that work for them. So there's different types out there. It's discovering the ones that work for you. And that's just like through practice, right? Meditation is practice, which means you don't just master it one day. It's like You have to do it all the time. But when you do it, you realize that it has huge physiological benefits that I share in my TED Talk. So it is one of the strategies in my talk that I talk about. So I'm going to leave it there so people again can go and listen to all the science behind meditation.
I also want to say, like, meditation, I think there's a misconception that it's literally just sitting down with your eyes closed, but meditation, it's not that. It could also just be like a walk in nature or a run or something like that. It's anything that gets you in the state of nothingness.
Yeah, in the flow. Yes, absolutely. So a next step would be gratitude. Again, I share lots about that in my TEDx, so I'll just leave it there on the science around that. So gratitude is one of those things that immediately raise our vibration. And so again, listen to the talk. The talk's only like 15 minutes, but there's so many good things in it. So I talk more about that step there. Being in the present moment and mindfulness is one of those strategies because again, happiness is found in the present moment, but we're often stuck in the past because 95%, so we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 95% of those thoughts are the same as yesterday. So they just want to recycle themselves over and over and over. 80% of those thoughts that are recycling are actually negative. So we have a negativity bias because there's some survival benefits to that, but really they're not all that beneficial for us living the magnificent life that we're here to live. And so we have to become aware of those thoughts. When we're stuck so many are either stuck in the past, thinking about their mistakes, thinking about the things that piss them off, thinking about their regrets. There may be things that are like shameful and their sins and lots of other things that happened that we can't again change. Or people are future tripping and thinking about the future and worrying and doubting about things again that are outside of their control. So in the present moment, mindfulness is one of those strategies that we can use to bring us back to here, so that we can be present and connecting to the joy in the present moment.
Okay. Well, thank you, Teresa. I'm going to put the link to your TED Talk so people can go ahead and check it out. It was an amazing TED Talk. I really loved it, and I would go listen to it a second time. So if you haven't listened to it, please go ahead and do so. And once again, thank you, Teresa. This was an eye-opening discussion.
Thank you. There were such great questions. I really appreciated it. Thank you.
Thanks.
This program is meant for entertainment purposes only. It is not meant to replace any educational programs or represent a professional coaching program. All examples provided by the author and speaker are purely anecdotal and are not meant to represent any institutions or companies in affiliation with the creator.